Hey, this is the Bible Forum. I'm Warren Sprouse. What are you missing? Mark Biltz, the man who discovered this blood moons phenomenon, shied away from making specific predictions relative to the solar eclipse. But he argues that it is similarly misguided to just laugh off these extraordinary signs in the heavens as having no real meaning. He says, as far as how I respond to those who are laughing at the idea that this solar eclipse could mean something, depends on who's doing the laughing or the mocking. He went on to say, I expect people who do not believe in God, the God of Israel, to mock. Look where that got him on Noah's day. Stop. Noah was not watching the heavens to see what was going to happen. Noah was not looking at something coming off the horizon that he knew worked every so many years and say, this one's going to be special. He goes on to say, to those who do believe and still mock, look at Lot's family with the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. Again, no watching tea leaves, no consulting of the witches. God told them what to do. The angels were there, grabbed them by their hands, and took them out. Completely different situation. But Biltz goes on to say that all of this is very similar. And the idea that this solar eclipse is the same as his blood moons is just sensationalism. I think his blood moons are sensationalism. He says it might sell books, has no place in doctrinal discussion of biblical eschatology. That's what I would say. Now, there are developments which point in the direction of biblical eschatology. That's a big 65-cent word. Talks about the doctrine of final things. We looked at one last week. Going to look at another one this week. Last week it was the electronic grain of sand that you can now have embedded in your hand or whatever. And now we're looking at tic-tacs. These are tattoos. Actually, they're tattoos that get attached to tattoos with electronics integrated into it. And you can have electronics in there for all sorts of things. Your credit card information, your personal ID, your medical information. It can monitor your vital signs in a live situation. You want to know more about it, just go to the web. Google. Look for tic-tacs. If you want to see what it looks like, Google Images has a whole bunch of these things. It's an ultra-thin tattoo that can be applied to the skin with water. It's almost transparent, and yet it could surpass the functions of today's bulkier wearable devices. The advantage of these ultra-thin graphene tattoos is that they can fully conform to the skin, and they can offer medical grade data quality in contrast with lower performance of the rigid electrode sensors mounted on bands and strapped to wrists or around your chest. Now, inquiring minds want to know, have we as a culture so given in to tattooing that this is just going to be the natural evolution? Or did we get pushed into this idea of tattooing because this is where somebody wanted us to go? I'm old enough to remember when a guy showed up with a tattoo, you knew one thing about him. He was drunk. And mostly it was sailors. And maybe Marines and other military types. Not so much Air Force. But now we've got women doing it. in very delicate places. And it's art. Body's the canvas. Do you know the Bible specifically forbids this kind of behavior? I know, it's under law, Mosaic law, Jews. It's a universal principle. Where do they come from? What is the point of them? Why do people do this? It's all important stuff. And now we have gotten to the place as a culture where we are so much into tattooing, even Christians in churches, that the devil himself is able to piggyback on this that is already here to move us closer and closer to what the Bible teaches us and tells us in very specific manner is going to be what happens at the end, when Satan is in charge, or at least seemingly so. Due to the high quality sensing of these tattoos, the researchers expect that they may offer promising replacements for existing medical sensors, stuff that is bulky and you have to carry it around. The tests show that the tattoos can be successfully used to measure skin temperature and skin hydration. They can function as EKG equipment, electromyogram, I don't know what that, EMG, and the EEG that measures electrical activity of the heart, muscles, and brain, respectively. But as we start to understand, its applications are not just limited to voluntary medical tracking. The functionality can be integrated into the emerging world of the Internet of Things, smart cities, and more. Experts tell us that graphene electronic tattoos are the most promising for potential application in mobile health care, in assisted technologies, in human-machine interfaces. In the area of a human-machine interface, electrophysiological signals recorded from the brain and muscles can be classified and assigned for specific action in this machine. There you go. Experts see this area of research having applications for the internet, smart houses and cities, human-computer interaction, smart wheelchairs, speech assistant technology, the monitoring of distracted driving, or drivers, probably more specifically, human robot control. It's wonderful. What could possibly go wrong? Recently, these tattoos have demonstrated the ability to sense human signals in order to wirelessly control flying objects. February of last year, 2016, the author of this piece covered a development by a company called Chaotic Moon. Chaotic Moon was seeking total integration with their tech tats, which they envisioned could be used to replace wallets as well as to monitor your vital signs. And now we're here. And rather than going to the doctor once a year for a physical, the tech tattoo can be something you put on your body once a year. It'll monitor everything that the doctor would have done in a physical and send that information to your doctor. And if he finds that there's an issue, he can call you. So your doctor's going to be sitting at a terminal, and he's just going to be checking his patients once a day, once a week, once a month, no matter. So the tech tats can really tie into everything. It can bring all these different things into one package. It can look at the early signs of a fever. It can monitor your vital signs like heart rate and so forth. Everything it needs to notify you that you're getting sick or that your child is getting sick. Surprised? Amazed? The above systems seem downright rudimentary compared with the new stuff that's on the way. Electronic tattoo technology being generated by graphene or from graphene by researchers at the University of Texas at Austin. Given the level of privacy that many people already have sacrificed for the convenience of the last generation of technology, we can only imagine how it's all going to accelerate when even a microchip implant becomes a bulky relic. And then there's biometric identification. A new program billed as a pilot program initiated by Delta Airlines at Minneapolis-St. Paul Airport as automated baggage kiosks to prioritize customers. It will scan the traveler's passport, then it will scan their face in order to match the identity to the checked luggage. You've no doubt seen this on one of the news programs or another, but the program has now entered phase 2 at Reagan National Airport with biometric boarding passes for just the reward members. JetBlue plans to test facial and fingerprint recognition technology at 2 U.S. airports that will replace boarding passes. Our phones replace the boarding passes. Now we're going to have technology, fingerprint, facial stuff, and building on industry efforts to increase security and to ease passage through airports. Meanwhile, countries like Australia and the UK have also got airport biometric programs rolling out. Australia is looking to make it a requirement nationwide by 2020. The UK has gone even one step further, has been testing a system to be used on trains as well, with a target date somewhere around 2020. Our own Department of Homeland Security has made it clear that biometric ID will eventually be mandatory for foreign travel, saying that the only way for an individual to ensure he or she is not subject to collection of biometric information when traveling internationally is to stay home. Yeah, there's no opting out. Just stay home. Don't go. Russia has a pilot program underway in Moscow where their 150,000 closed caption TV cameras are being retrofitted with new facial recognition technology that can even read emotions in an effort to establish a pre-crime policing system. According to the publication Mass Privatel, a company called Xenius is at the forefront of spreading facial recognition even wider into conferences and events. It heralds the next step toward increasingly pervasive biometric ID requirements to function in a modern society. The goal here? Well, the stated goal is to speed up check-ins at conferences and events. Attendees have registered for a conference ahead of time. They've provided the pertinent personal information, and they've uploaded a photo. So when they arrive at the conference, that person just needs to step up to the device, usually a tablet, where a camera scans the person's face, uses the image to call up all of the information, and completes the check-in process digitally. At the Xenius website, you can find a video which makes a direct appeal to convenience and security by databasing attendees with facial recognition as well as social media logins. Facebook, Twitter, name it. It's an illustration of how the virtual world and the real world are melding into one and the same thing. Step by step, people are being transformed into digital organisms made easier for scanning and processing, and the practical reasons are there. The political will is there. The databases exist, and the technology is clearly being rolled out across every meaningful area of human activity. And in case you haven't had enough, the Dutch airline KLM has a new promotion in honor of homosexual pride, apparently a Dutch thing. They're showing a picture of 3 seat belts. They're unclicked. And the airline says it doesn't matter who you click with. Happy Pride Amsterdam. Well, in the picture are 2 buckles that are placed opposite each other, along with 2 tabs, a buckle and a tab. You get to go to my website. Here are 3 buckles, three seat belts that aren't hooked together. And of course there's a male and a female for each one of these. Only one of which can be hooked together. The other 2 won't work. And they're showing this in rainbow colors. But it doesn't work. In the case of these 3 seat belts, only one of them can be fastened and do the job. But it doesn't seem to matter. The other 2, either 2 male or 2 female. And their point is that while the airline may have meant it as an illustration of same-sex relationships, when 2 buckles are not going to keep anybody safe in case of an incident, what's the point? And someone observed Amsterdam's Pride Week celebration just wrapped up Sunday, but Royal Dutch Airlines made sure to lend its support with the Pride Amsterdam tweet. That to a lot of people seemed pretty clever for about a second and a half until reality set in. Another man says, nice metaphor. 2 of those combinations are functionally useless. The Federalist Musket said, 2/3 of these things can't, click. What's going on? Well, the world is getting ready for Jesus. Everything is coming apart. Right is no longer the only thing that's right. Wrong is no longer really wrong. Gender is no longer a static thing. Money is more computerized numbers than actual bills in hand. Governments are coming unglued. Can you say the Middle East, the European Union, Africa, South America? None of the old ways work anymore. Truth is not even essential. And honesty is all but gone. And Christianity? It's whatever you say it is, for you. But God is never going to let it come apart. Not completely. When it reaches critical mass, things are going to start to happen. And the Bible lays it out. The church, all those who are truly saved by the grace of God, not just those that are playing church, are going to be removed. It's the next thing on God's agenda, on His calendar. They're just going to go away. Why? Well, because there is either going to be, or there already will be, a war. The war will be in the Middle East. Where else? The Western world will send an emissary. The Bible calls him a king. And he, along with 10 other kings, will seek to get control of the world's systems. But it's a fool's errand. The economy is shot. And war, death, and sickness is everywhere. Think of several 100 million people, their bodies left behind to rot wherever they are, and they're gone. And that's without war. The airplanes that crash, the cars that collide, the trains that, it's chaos. And the Bible gives us a picture where it appears that the 11 kings sent to fix things kind of come to blows. There's political intrigue here of some sort, because the Bible says one of them is killed. And he's killed with a blow across his face as from a sword. And he lies dead for 3 days. And then suddenly he's alive. And when he comes alive, he takes out 3 other kings. And if you can keep the math straight, when you're done, you got 7. And this king that was dead and now lives, he's the 8th. He then sets up a global dictatorship with him as the king. He takes control of government. He takes control of wealth, of the money. Think 666. And under the leadership of the second beast, the man of sin, he takes control of religion. The 144,000 witnesses that have been preaching for about 3 years, and many Jews and others are being brought to Christ as a result. And then there is this picture in heaven of the souls that have been beheaded for the cause of Christ during this time. Does that mean the guillotine? Or is it something to do with Islam? Don't know. But all of this is Satan's plan for taking control of the world. Does it sound familiar to you? It's not a whole lot different than what we see going on right now with globalism and ecumenism and the World Bank and the United Nations, and then the religious community that is coming together at every point. Now we got all these electronic identifiers looking just like what the Bible predicted 2,000 years ago. And with the visible church gone, and with all objective morality gone, Israel is under tremendous pressure. The EU is staggering, unable to be of much help. Global poverty is not very far from most nations, even Western nations, during this time period. A global bank is propping up our monetary systems with smoke and mirrors. Look at our debt. We have debt now just shy of $20 trillion. You can't think of a number that big. And we're in good shape compared to the world. You don't see global immigrants rushing to get into China or Africa or South America. And where they are being accepted, those nations are now teetering on insolvency, and they're trying to figure out what to do with them or get rid of them. This whole world is ripe for the picking. And everything from finances to music to education to church is working together to drive people downward, not upward.